welcome to the first episode of Imperial Interlude in 2021. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is Ralph. Hello, Ralph. Welcome back.
Hello, Tim. Yes, Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, how has 2021 treated you in the first 6 days?
Isn't it just an extension of 2020? You know, isn't that what it feels like at the
Yeah,
moment?
it's 2021, as someone
Yes,
put it.
yes.
It's somebody wrote on the 6th. I've used up my 7-day trial of 2021. I don't like it. I would want to give it back and now have my 2022, please.
Yeah, I saw that one as well. It looks like 2020 was just the beta test for 2021, you know?
Yeah, this is now the full release with all DLC and
Yeah.
weird things to come. So, shall we talk about one of the few things that were more of the good side in 2020, which was the Disney investors call from the 10th of December,
Yes,
where the usual bollocks of "we made so much money and this is how we make much more money" was said, but as the theme of this podcast is, there was also be said a lot about Star Wars.
yes. It was more the fact is we didn't make as much money as we did last year, but we still made a shit ton of money, so because of our theme parks were shut. But yes, there was lots of Star Wars announcements in the investors' call.
Karim Daniel, Chairman, Media Entertainment Distribution, launched rather early on a very large picture with giving what's to come. 10 Star Wars series. Quote, page 10 of the transcript if anyone wants to listen. So we have got 10 things. And later on, Kathleen Kennedy goes into detail which is to be expected for the next 2 years. So do you have a list or should I read down the list?
I've got 8 items here, not including the 2 movies which we knew we knew one movie was coming.
So I'm going down the list. We've got here Rangers of the New Republic,
Yep.
Ahsoka Tano, Andor, The Bad Batch, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Star Wars Visions, Lando, The Acolyte, A Droid Story, The Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian Season 3, and the Rogue Squadron movie.
Yep, and they also mentioned on the call the Taika Waititi Star Wars project, which is just called Star Wars at the moment.
Which is rather anticlimactic.
Yeah. We don't know anything about that other than Taika's writing and directing that with someone else as well. It's a female writer working with Taika on his Star Wars project, which should be quite interesting because it's Taika Waititi. We know what his sense of humor is like, and what he did with Thor Ragnarok should be quite interesting if he brings that sort of thing into Star Wars.
Well, again, as regular listeners know, I don't know much about comics, so I'm just going to take your word for it.
He also did what we do in the Shadows. I don't know if you've seen that one, the vampire film and TV series, which was quite amusing as well.
Could be, but I don't recognize the title, so there's that. Yeah. Translation again for you.
I suppose, yes, it'll be possibly
you would really wonder how some translated titles come to life when you've got something that is called clearly which would be very easy to translate, and suddenly it got a totally different drift by name. I'm lacking an example right now, but there were some things in the past where I read the original title and thought to myself, how the hell did they end up translating the title to what they did?
Very, very much. Well, right. So what should we pick first?
Going by the script, I've got some notes. So the first thing Kathleen Kennedy noted was Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka Tano going more like toe on toe.
Yeah. So, what I've managed to pick up on seeing what's out there is Rangers and Ahsoka are both in the same timeline as The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So they're the spin-off shows directly from The Mandalorian, along with the Book of Boba Fett, which we saw at the end of episode 8 season 2 of The
Oh,
Mandalorian. That was the announcement that they held off from the investors'
yeah,
call,
we forgot one thing to mention.
which is
Spoilers.
oh
We
yes,
are not holding back on this podcast. We have seen most of the things we talk about regarding Star Wars, and we will talk in very clear words. We're not going to try to sugarcoat anything or hide things or plots. So if you are not up to snuff with your Star Wars Rebels, clone troopers, whatsoever, please stop here. Come back when you have watched everything. Or maybe you just don't care for plots, and then you
yeah,
still can hear us out.
very true. So we know that Rangers and Ahsoka are in the same universe as The Mandalorian and the Book of Fett.
Yes.
We also know that Kathleen Kennedy, when she made the announcement, was that Rangers, maybe The Mandalorian, but definitely Rangers and Ahsoka are going to combine at some point to do a cinematic story event, like a crossover, a bit like how they do the CW shows, where you had like Flash and Arrow and all them join together for their
Yeah,
big crossover.
her wording was interconnected shows.
Yes.
So I'm guessing it's not only that we see a character from Series A appearing in Series B, but maybe in future seasons that there are actually crossovers or heavy
Yeah.
cross references from one to another.
But I think because this she also said when she announced Ahsoka that it was going to be a limited series. I don't know whether that's staying as is, but if Ahsoka's a limited series but Rangers isn't, I'm wondering if the crossover event, and this has been hinted at that supposedly they've been in talks with the voice actor who voiced Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is Mads Mikkelsen's brother, who Mads Mikkelsen, if people don't know, played Galen Erso in Rogue One.
I think the term she used at the end was that these shows will culminate in a climatic story
Exactly.
event. So
Yes.
I'm guessing, and this is purely thinking logically in this, since the events take place shortly after the Return of the Jedi and is more or less before the sequel trilogy starts, I'm guessing they are limiting themselves just not to get too far ahead in the timeline to get
Yeah.
to maybe interact with the plot of the sequel movies.
Yeah. It would have anything to do with the sequels, but I think this the cinematic story event or the crossover series where you've got say Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Rangers all together, and who the villain might be, I think that might be a blue admiral in a white uniform called Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Could very well be.
I think that would be the way of introducing Thrawn into live action. And like I was saying, supposedly on Deadline mentioned this. I don't know how true it is. That they were talking to, like I said, Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced Thrawn in Rebels, to possibly play him in live action.
Well, it could very well be.
So we know Kathleen Kennedy said it's going to be a cinematic story event, so we know it's going to be a crossover series between probably Rangers, Ahsoka, maybe the Mandalorian, maybe not. We don't know because of the threads left by the end of season 2 of the Mandalorian. Because we don't know where season 3 is going. I know there's a lot of speculation around season 3 being maybe to do with Mandalore and the dark saber and all of that.
Oh, going back to the last episode of season 2, we have a conclusion on the story arc with Grogu, which is Baby Yoda. We have a Mandalorian queen of sorts that wants to regain power on Mandalore. We have a Mandalorian that is carrying the dark saber, which she would
doesn't
like to
want it.
have. I'm guessing that literally is the main plot line for the next season.
I think so as well. And I know there was some online chatter through some of the fan groups and things and stuff about is this mean that we're going to get Din on the throne of Mandalore and a dead Bo-Katan? I don't think
No, I wouldn't
personally
think so.
they'll kill
He
Bo-Katan. There's too much with that character.
yeah. Also, it has been shown in the last episode that he really doesn't want to
He
be
doesn't
the
want it. Yeah.
Mandalore. He just wants to have a quiet life, maybe pick up Roku from school later on.
Yeah, Dad will come and do the school run. Okay, come on.
The intergalactic school bus when
Exactly.
a yellow painted CR-90 transporter arrives.
Yeah, it's a short bus. It's a really short bus. But yeah, so we know from that as well. But I'm wondering as well because Rangers is going to be, and I think John Favreau mentioned it, a bit like Marshals. So it's a bit like Texas Rangers, pretty much. Yeah, what Rangers of the New Republic's going to be. Is this an opening to have Gina Carano's character have more, which I would like to see? I would love to see.
I would love to have her some act on the planet a bit like a
Yeah,
Wild West Marshal. So
exactly.
now that we mention it, she reminds me an awful lot of an animated character from the 90s, Marshal Bravestar.
Yes.
A gender swap Marshal Bravestar would fit so much.
Yeah, but I like Cara Dune. I like the character. I think they've done a really good job of setting that character out, and she's got a lot of hidden backstory that we haven't explored.
Yeah,
Stuff to do with Alderaan and things like that. And the reference to the tear, which I thought was interesting, the tattoo on her face, which is the tear to
yeah.
represent Alderaan, and that's the first time that's been mentioned anywhere. So expanding that character out to be more, more in, say, Rangers of the New Republic and almost become the lead of it. But I think that'll be an ensemble cast, because the other one that I've seen mentioned is they want the Asian X-Wing pilot
From the
from
Ice,
the
Ice Planet episode.
yeah, and they want him because the actor, and I've got his name here because I'm following him on YouTube because he has his YouTube channel.
But it's not some dude on YouTube, just to be clear.
It is. Well, it's not some dude. It's Asian dude, angry Asian dude on YouTube.
You're dead serious.
I am. I will just find it here.
Well, that's a coincidence I did not see coming.
Is it Asian? Just googling it here. So yeah, that anyway. The actor is he does a comedy show called on Netflix called Kim's Convenience. He's Canadian.
Mhm.
Then I think we've talking about him, the interview we did with the with when he went for his fitting of his costume.
Yeah,
they didn't have a help. He's done an interview
and he got the wedge one.
He got the big. It was Biggs.
Biggs,
He got
Biggs one.
Biggs's original helmet though as well, which I thought was nice. And they dug it out, and he said he got some photos for himself. That he was able to keep, but he was in tears. He's a fan. He's part of the 501st. He does cosplays and all sorts. So there's a call possibly to have him as, shall we say, the one of the lead characters as well in there. I found it. I'm just gonna. Bitter Asian Dude is his YouTube channel.
Ah, okay.
And it's. I'm just trying to find his name. It's Paul Sung Hugh. So it's HYUNG Hung. However you pronounce it. It's just I've just killed his name.
Butchering names
Yes.
online is our specialty.
Exactly, but he does unboxings as well and stuff of things, and he's a cosplayer. His very first cosplay he did he was talking about it was making a proton pack.
Ghostbusters, obviously.
Obviously, yeah, live thing. So there's talk of there's a call within the fan base to get him as as one of the characters within Rangers, and I think it would work. Because then you could have Trapper Wolf come in and out, and that would really please Dave Filoni. Not because, as we all know, Dave Filoni hates being in camera. But I think Rangers will be that ensemble, going off, bringing law to the rim, to the outer rim, and I think that's what the show will be like. It'll be like a Old West.
Yeah, I was just about saying like I don't know what the show was called originally, but in Germany it was called Rauchende Colts, Smoking Guns.
Gunsmoke.
Does it the old black and white series was?
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a good example of translation.
I mean, you had a bunch of them in sort of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you had Gunsmoke, you had Bonanza, you had High Chaparral, and the one that Clint Eastwood made his name in was called Rawhide.
Yeah, but I was
You
referring
know,
to Gunsmoke, so that
yeah,
was
Gunsmoke.
a very straight up. The
Mhm.
sheriff is the good guy, and there
Yeah,
are baddies coming around to town. And I'm thinking, if they go that route and really do make it a, well, let's call it classic Star Wars
mhm,
saga. You have the good guys and you have the bad guys, and
yeah.
there's little in between.
And I mean, the bad guys could be not just say the Empire, but it could be pirates and things like that, and
Yeah, but
and
criminals, the hot
criminals. Yeah,
cartel. There is so
well,
many
the,
possibilities.
the Fett cartel.
Dark Sun,
Yes, exactly. So, well, that could be an obvious one, or the Crimson Dawn as well. Is it the Crimson Dawn?
I think. I think so.
Yeah, the one the one that Maul ran.
Could be. I'm not so familiar with that
Yeah.
timeline.
Mhm. So there's also going on. So we know from what they said, Rangers, Ahsoka, and Mando, we know they're coming, and they're all in the same universe, and they're all being controlled by Dave Filoni. I think the interesting thing as well was the Book of Boba Fett isn't just Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau; it's Robert Rodriguez is controlling that as well, who
Hmm.
directed the episode. So that's going to have an interesting twist on his style of directing and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the plus sides we've seen in Mandalorian is having different directors for
Hmm.
episodes. It gives them a twist,
Hmm.
even though the characters are mostly the same, but there's a different flavor, and it's like getting Chinese food, but every week, but from a different restaurant every time.
Exactly.
It's more or less the same, but everyone does it differently.
Yeah. So that's sort of in the Mandalorian timeline. I think pre-Mandalorian timeline, the two big ones are which were announced. We knew that these had been announced ages ago, but we finally got to see some stuff of it. Was the Andor TV series,
Yes.
which from that sizzle reel, the show looks really good, looks really interesting. You've got Cassian Andor, for people who don't know, is the spy character from Rogue One, who had the droid K2SO.
Which is one of the more, let's say, controversial characters within the Star Wars universe, at least for my taste, because he isn't really a clearly good guy.
No,
He literally goes out of his way killing people if that makes his job easier. He doesn't like the killing, as far as I can tell by the character from the movie, but he's not afraid to shoot somebody in his face if it serves the purpose of getting the information out.
yeah, which you've got that grey area which we don't see in a lot of Star Wars characters. I think even the Mandalorian didn't have much grey in it, did it? It was it
No.
was clear cut
Uh,
where this is going to be. I think from the tone, I think they're aiming for as well is I think they're aiming for that sort of spy TV show
yeah, and
feel to it.
I'm just uh, guessing here, but me personally, I think that's what the appeal of Star Wars is usually to most people. It is a
Mhm.
clear
Yeah,
cut from black to white, so you actually have no problem siding with one or the other.
yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what
Yeah.
what it comes out at. But what's interesting is that they sort of announced some cast as well. There's some casting information. So from those of us that watch the original and don't get the dubbed version, sorry Tim. Um, Alan Tudyk is coming back as K2SO, which should be interesting. The other one, which I saw recently, which is really interesting, is we've got Genevieve O'Reilly coming, reprising her role as Mon Mothma. Now, she played Mon Mothma in not just Rogue One, I think. She was in Revenge of the Sith as
I,
Mon Mothma as well.
I think so, yeah.
I've just brought it up. Yeah, she was. She
A
played
rather
this.
young one.
Mhm. Yeah, so she's reprising the role of playing Mon Mothma. So we know Mon Mothma's possibly coming into this show, which would be, which would probably be,
It's a
um,
logical conclusion
yeah.
since she is more or less head of military, more if I remember correctly.
She was a senator like Bail Organa.
Yeah, but she was more or less one of the
Yeah,
ones that calls the shots, and I'm thinking, if I remember the books right, she actually had some power within the rebellion
yeah,
as a faction.
yeah. It was her, Bale, and Padme were the three sort of senators, and it's almost like the core of the start of the rebellion, shall we say, all the way
Mhm.
back to when Padme died. Andor, in the information I've read here, is going to be set 5 years before Rogue One. So where the Mandalorian set 5 years after Return of the Jedi, this one's going to be 5 years before Rogue One. The other one which we knew, there was casting during the investor call about an actor coming back, was of course Kenobi.
Yes.
The big news from Kenobi. Now they did show footage, but not to us that were watching it. Because I watched the stream. I watched part of the stream later on YouTube because there was a bunch of YouTubers managed to to stream it because it was being streamed. But because it was an investor call, some of the stuff was not shown, and that was things like they had footage from Kenobi. Well, not so much footage like a scissors reel for Kenobi, and all you got was a coming in like 2 minutes, like a digital countdown as the screen went blue with the Disney Plus logo on it. So yeah, they weren't showing everybody it, who were just showing their investors it. Was that Hayden Christensen's coming back to play Vader?
Yeah, but that's also in the transcript, so
Yeah,
it's no secret. It's officially
yeah.
confirmed that Hayden Christensen and what's his face,
Ewan McGregor.
yeah, are going to reprise their roles.
The
Which,
other
to be
the other
honest,
interesting thing, though, sorry Tim, the other interesting thing before sort of continue on that is that there's talk as well as Tamuri Morrison's going to make an appearance playing either Rex or Cody,
well, possible.
because the clones will be with Vader. Because the rumor is as well as that Hayden Christensen's it's not just going to be in flashback, it's going to be him in the black costume.
Yeah, that's pretty sure because it's 10 years after
Yeah,
Revenge of the Sith, so
yeah.
he is chopped up and smoked.
Yes, barbecued.
So it would be very natural to have him as Darth Vader, not as Hayden as Anakin Skywalker with red eyes.
Yeah, but it could also, you could have him doing both, couldn't you? Because you could do some flashback
Yeah,
before you was sliced and before you turned into Vader.
but I think
No,
they
so
will not do that.
I don't think either. I don't think.
Simply for the fact that the actor has aged so much since then that it would clearly show.
Yeah, unless they do what they did with Mark Hamill in the last episode of.
Maybe, but I'm thinking they don't need flashbacks in
No,
this case because we have the animated series and
true.
we have the movies, and I think that there's so much intertwined. If they start flashbacks and they only use storylines from the movie because they have material from there, uh, fans would start to wonder why don't they use flashbacks from critical scenes from Clone Wars.
Yeah. So, but the other thing as well is the showrunner for Kenobi is Deborah Chow. Now, Deborah Chow it was one of the directors on season 1 of The Mandalorian. She directed episode 3, which was the one where we had the big fight scene where he goes and rescues Grogu.
Hmm.
She directed that, but she's also directed other things. She did some Mr. Robot episodes. She did some episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. She did 2 episodes in season 1 of The Mandalorian. She did The Sin, which was the rescue episode, and she did Reckoning, which was episode 7. So the introduction of Moff Gideon, things like that. So she's very, we know she's very accomplished playing in that Star Wars universe, but she just has some good credentials of doing other TV, other shows as well. And she is the showrunner, and it looks like the director for all of the episodes of the Kenobi series, which will be interesting if they do keep to that. From
And
what I've
I'm
seen
I'm
here.
wondering if they will be able to keep secrets as good with those episodes as they did with the Mandalorian.
I think they will. I think they've got Star Wars down so that the secrets are very much being, shall we say, lockdown, because nobody knew about Mark Hamill until he turned. Supposedly they didn't even have the script pieces until he turned up on set.
Well, the computer game industry could learn a thing or two from this.
Yes. Yes.
Just to put it in there.
I'm thinking Star Wars probably took the cues from the Marvel Cinematic Universe when they did some of this as well.
If I remember correctly, I saw a documentary on the original trilogy, and this Empire Strike Back script wasn't printed on white paper, but I think on red paper, which was very hard to photocopy, so that nobody could take pieces and distribute them.
Yeah, especially those
critical scenes.
I was thinking the critical scene with Mark Hamill was in the original script. It was, "No, Vader, you killed my father," but it was Mark was taken to one side, and it was George and Lawrence Kasdan, no, not Lawrence Kasdan, the director of Empire, Ivan Kershner, and they sat Mark down, and he's told this story. He said, "I know this. George knows this. I don't know if George was in the room. Now you know this. So if it leaks, we know where it came from." And it was "No, you are my father. You are my father.
I am your father."
Yeah, that line, and and I think Mark he had to sit on that for nearly a year. So it's a bit like him turning up with the Mandalorian. He had to keep his gob shut for nearly a year, and the old joke would have been as if Carrie Fisher had been there,
I didn't tell anybody, not even Carrie.
Tell a Carrie, because it would go around like wildfire because she was there, supposedly. But yeah, so with Kenobi, we know nothing other than exile Kenobi 10 years before or 10 years after the episode 3, so we know nothing of that. The other thing within that timeline that we do know is coming, and we got a really cool trailer for, was the Bad Batch.
Yes, that's one really that for me personally came out of left field. I wouldn't have guessed that they would take these weird clone droids and somehow do a very weird job of making them center of a new animated series.
It was announced after the Clone Wars season 7 had aired. It was announced in July of 2022 that the Bad Batch was coming. There was a big announcement about it.
Yeah, I know. At that point, I was thinking, what?
Yeah, and then we get the sizzle reel, which looks really good. Actually, it looks very, very much.
When I first heard that they would make a spin-off series, I was, oh great, some second-class storyline that runs parallel to Clone Wars animated series. Nope.
Ooh,
it's just before Order 66 or closely after Order 66, and I'm guessing there will be some struggles within the group for, do we take this order or do we not?
It's from what is mentioned here it's the squad making their way through the galaxy as mercenaries in the early days of the Empire. And if you look at some of the footage of the trailers as well in the sizzle reel, it looks like they're being hunted by their the clones. So I've got a suspicion the Bad Batch, because of who they are, either had their chips removed or didn't have chips because they were classed as being defective.
Yeah, or the chips are simply not working because they're too individual.
Mm-hmm. So they're being hunted by clones, by their own people. But of course, we saw Grand Moff Tarkin in the animated trailer. We saw Tarkin in there,
and the Emperor.
And the Emperor going, yeah, my Grand Army of the or First Army of the Empire, or whatever it was, So I've got a suspicion the first episodes of that will be Order 66, so running in line with the end of Clone Wars, which was an amazing piece of writing, and just generally. And Dave is back. Dave's there as an executive producer, so we know it's going to be keeping the same quality and the same animation styles as we got at the end of Clone Wars. Because the beginning of Clone Wars is fine. We all say it's a little bit ropey.
Yeah, but it's still light years ahead from the weird cartoon movie they did.
Yes, it's light years ahead of the Samurai Jack creators version on the Cartoon Network. I know people like that one.
I
I
I
did.
can't understand why. I've seen it multiple times and I never finished it. It's
Yeah,
just
and it's one of the things now where you won't see it again. Disney are not going to produce that out. Release it. They've said it's a bit like George turning around and says you will never see the holiday special, the original holiday special. He just nah, and
well,
I
thank
don't think.
God for Google.
Yeah. I was thinking YouTube. Yeah, um, but so we are getting the Bad Batch, and that's coming this year. So at least this year, we know for a fact of 2 Star Wars properties that we are getting on Disney Plus, and that's Bad Batch, June 2021. So I'm assuming that could be the middle of 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably after all of the Marvel stuff has dropped, because we've got a lot of Marvel stuff at the front end of this year, and we've got the Book of Fett at the end of this year, and then season 3 of The Mandalorian will be early next year. And the reason that we're getting a slightly longer break for The Mandalorian is partly scheduling, and I think also COVID.
Yeah. And I don't know if they've built a second set of their virtual.
They've got a larger version of what they now call stagecraft, because that was actually on the investors call as well, and they've got 2 built sets, and they're selling the technology to other people to use.
Yeah, which come to think of those things, I think though they will increase the production quality of
Yeah,
so many things, and basically it isn't that of a complex technology if you
no,
start thinking on it. So I'm guessing they will be selling plans and not actually hardware, because the only thing you need is a high resolution display and some cameras.
very true, very true. It's I've messed with VR because of in my job and stuff. We looked at it from a teaching point of view, and the technology is, I mean, it's what some of the stuff's very basic, and it can be very basic, but some of the stuff we looked at, especially when based around anatomy, when I was based up at the Faculty of Health, was amazing. Some of the anatomy stuff, it just changed the way that you could teach anatomy. So, if you can do that with teaching, imagine what, we've seen what the quality of the digital sets are. There was one episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian that they did film away from the volume, and that was the Fett episode where he was introduced,
Mm.
the tragedy, and that was the only set. That was the only one where they were actually on a location. The rest of the time, yes, they do have locations. They have like stuff on the back lot. They've got a train yard next to them, because that was where the TIE fighter landed in the parts of Navarro during that sort of climactic battle scene of season 1. So they've got that, but a vast majority of the stuff for sound staging is all done with the volume, because they don't need green screens really much because of the volume,
Yeah.
the way it works.
And the lighting just
Yeah,
works better in that
yeah,
way. It blends things together. And in the documentary for season 2, they have a shot somewhere in there where they show the set when it's in the mode from the junkyard, and you
yeah,
can clearly see that there is a screen, but it still looks so convincing. It's, yeah, like a very, very cool stage set if you just look at it.
yeah,
And I can't imagine standing on that thing and looking around and thinking, yep, I'm on Tatooine.
yeah. I mean, that's what it. That's the whole thing. Imagine as well, and the 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 Asian actor who portrayed that captain said that when he was, when you were in the cockpit, it felt like you were in the cockpit when they started moving the starfield and stuff, and they're
Yeah.
moving back and forth. And he was told, if you feel sick, if you do feel that inertia thingy on, because your brain's telling you one thing, to concentrate on one point on the cockpit, because that's the static point. But the rest of it is going around, and it makes you feel like you are, in the environment, which is great. So that was Bad Batch. So we've covered
And
that one.
Kenobi.
Kenobi. Lando. Now, there'd been a lot of talk on a couple of the podcasts, especially the Kessel Run one that I occasionally listen to, and they were Kessel Run Transmissions, I think, is the podcast. And there'd been a lot of talk around what the talk about a Lando show possibly coming. Now we've heard nothing other than what was announced, which was a logo.
Yeah,
They showed a logo.
so we know Disney confirmed there is a show called Lando.
Yeah,
It's Star Wars. Full stop.
that's it. The only additional piece, but this didn't come from Disney, so I would take this with a huge, great big pinch of salt, was there's talk of it being both current Lando and young Lando.
I'm really not sure what I would want.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether they do it where there was an episode of. Have you ever watched the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles? Did you ever watch that?
Yes, I was rather fond of that series. It was somehow hilarious.
It was good fun, but there's an episode. I think it's called Indy Plays the Blues. Now I've got all 3 seasons on DVD because it got released and I liked it. I thought it was really good fun. It was very high quality. It was one of the most expensive shows at its time when it was made. It was something like $1.5 million an episode.
and it
Very
had
expensive.
the humor from Indiana Jones
Yeah,
was on point. Especially I remember in the first episode when young Indiana Jones is fleeing, running about on this train, and for the first time using a
yeah,
whip at an enemy and hitting himself.
yeah. But there's an episode where they're talking about where Indy it's like 1950s or something. You know, this is before we got Kingdom of the Golden Crystal Skull. So
We don't
and
talk about that.
we don't talk about that one, yeah. And he hides in in like a barn or in a cabin in snow, and there's somebody with him, and he sits down and he then looks and pulls out what looks like a trumpet and goes to play it, and it's actually Harrison Ford, and then that cuts to Sean Patrick Flannery, who played young Indiana Jones, cut to that adventure, and it was all based in Chicago around that sort of period of time of jazz clubs and speakeasies and things like that. So I'm wondering if that's where they might go with it, where you've got Orlando recounting stories,
Could be.
maybe, as a hook. But if they're going to do a full-out Lando show, I think, if you're going to do anything, you keep it and get Donald Glover to play young Lando. Just keep it as young Lando, yeah. But I think this might allow them to then go back and get Alden Ehrenreich to occasionally appear as Han Solo.
Well, I was just thinking the possibilities reach from making a series that spans Orlando's whole career, from being the young owner of the Millennium Falcon up to where he's ending up in the sequels, and via the means of Bespin. I'm thinking personally. I think the most interesting part would be if they would show his way, where he went after he left Bespin and how he ended up in the sequels. I think that would be the most interesting part, because he's a general in the Republic, in the rebellion. I think he will leave the rebellion the instant it becomes the legal organization of the galaxy. At that point, he's going back to be a freelancer and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so doing it the same way that they did from the novels, from the old Legends novels, where Lando had left and went off and was running a mining facility when we first encounter him, when Thrawn steals all of his mole miners in the
I
novel.
remember that.
So, there's nothing said. They did supposedly have some concept videos and possibly the gentleman who's creating the story talking about it, but we never got to see that. They kept that behind the investor bits. The other one, which was a surprise from when it was announced, is the Acolyte.
Yeah, simply for the fact that this is seemingly something that is going to show the darker side of a galaxy.
Yes, but it's also the timeline it's set in.
Yeah, let me quote Miss Kennedy here. The Acolyte is a mystery thriller that will take us into a galaxy of shadowy secrets, emerging dark side powers, and the final days of the High Republic era.
Mhm.
So, this is potentially the tipping point of when the High Republic and the Jedi's start to stumble and fall.
Well, I've got the first novel of the High Republic to listen to.
The
So I've
new
got
ones.
the new ones. Yeah, I've got the very first, not the young readers ones. It's the actual the first novel.
Yeah.
And I did watch the launch of it on YouTube after it had launched. And from my understanding, where it is the start of the High Republic, and even in this first novel, is where things start to go wrong. From what I can gather from the incident that happens, as it's called. Um, so I'm wondering if this is going to be the sort of the start of the Sith, or the return of the Sith.
It would be the return, I think, because simply the term they used, emerging dark side powers.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds like somebody is maybe um, finding things they shouldn't find, reactivating things they shouldn't reactivate, or
yeah,
possibly some young, energetic Jedi that is simply too uh, too eager to learn more and then falls into the seduction that is the dark force.
yeah. Now, what's interesting as well is it's a female lead as well. So we're getting a female lead for a show. So this will be the first show with second show with a female lead after Ahsoka. But we don't really.
Possibly the third if Rangers is led by.
Yes, yes. If Rangers is led by, so that's that's all positive. We want more inclusion within the Star Wars universe and things like that. The other thing as well is the showrunner and creator is Lisa Headland. Now she wrote a Netflix show called Russian Doll, which is a bit like Groundhog Day.
Mhm.
But what it is the lead character keeps dying, and it's getting out and stopping things to get out of that loop. But during her keep dying, during the 10 episodes, she bumps into somebody else who's going through the same thing. It's that same repeating over and over again of events that cause the two of them to die. It's a little bit of a dark comedy. It's a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a drama in there as well. So she was the creator of that is actually the one that's going to be creating the Acolyte. So we don't know. And
Potential for interesting plot twists.
exactly. And the other thing was on November 5th, Deadline reported that the series, this was before the investor day, so God knows how if this true or not, it's an action thriller with martial arts elements.
Well, if they are going to be Jedi and Sith, there's
Exactly.
actually going to be a lot of that.
Yeah.
And
So
from what I remember from older stories, books, computer games, that High Republic is always a more martial arts
yeah,
timeline. There were a lot of weapons based on swords and staffs more than blasters.
yeah.
A more
That's
civilized age,
yes,
as some bearded man somewhere
yes, a
coined it.
more civilized age. Yes, that was the old. I'm not sure what they've done with the new High Republic, but I know that was when it was in, or what's now falls under Legends, where they talk about the old Republic and things like that, where the High Republic's 200 years. And I know one of the things they have shown off in the High Republic, with the images and stuff, is a Wookie Jedi.
Yeah.
So that will be officially the second Wookie Jedi we've had, unofficially the third, because there was one in the Yuuzhan Vong War. In Star Wars Legends, there was a Wookiee Jedi. But in Clone Wars, we get to meet a Wookiee Jedi, one of the younglings that goes to the Kyber Crystal episode. So this will be the second Wookiee Jedi, and a 700-year-old Yoda they showed off in some of the artwork.
One just out of his midlife crisis.
Yes, exactly. Wondering where Grogu is. Sorry.
Just sold his speeder for a family van.
Yeah, exactly. He was wondering where his child is. I mean, even though Grogu's only 50, but still. Yoda before he becomes a daddy. That's it,
Oh
isn't it?
god,
Yes.
yeah. Daddy Yoda.
Bed you must go now.
Told you I have multiple times. Angry I get, I won't. Go to bed now.
Oh dear, yes.
Oh god,
Yeah.
can you imagine, even if this was only a short episode, like 6 or 10 minute snippet of Yoda being actually somebody's father, having an infant getting back to bed.
Yes.
And
Oh dear.
imagine having an infant that has the potential ability to float out of his crib and grab you by the throat.
Exactly. So the other two things that were, I'm not sure whether one of them was announced as animation or as a live action. I'm not sure, but the first one was Star Wars Visions, which is an anthology series of shorts by anime directors.
Yeah.
So it reminds me when they announced it's like the Animatrix, which I have seen and I have owned because I got the Animatrix trilogy set, and that was a collection of short stories done by anime writers and directors set in the Matrix universe. So it sounds like it's exactly the same.
Yeah, something along those lines.
And the
I
other
think
one's the
that
droids.
yeah,
Sorry, Tim.
the Visions thing, I think, could be potentially interesting because they would enable Disney to uh, stick their feet into different waters to see
Yeah.
what kind of animation may work with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Thinking of that, there is an animation on YouTube that is very anime-like.
Yes, I know
The
which one
TIE
you mean.
Fighter one.
Yes.
Technically, it's brilliantly done, but it doesn't feel Star Warsy at all.
It feels like Robotech.
Yeah, Robotech, Gundam,
Across.
anything, but
Yeah.
it's not Star Wars. But it's on a technical level, it's high quality. It's very well done. But I think it sucks monkey balls regarding being Star Wars.
And then there was the droids as well, which was announced, which
A droid story. And the
yeah,
interesting thing is it's a droid, so it's singular. And as I have read up, there is to be two very prominent droids introducing this one droid.
yes,
So we are probably getting R2D2 and C3PO
yeah,
leading into a story with a droid, whatever he will be. I'm going to say it will not be a power droid. It will not be the story of Gong.
no, it won't be Gonk.
Though
Star Wars story.
That would actually be a cool vehicle because a energy droid is around and things happen around him. Suddenly, an emergency landing, and he needs to refill the X-wing or anything. It would be a very calm center on a hectic world. You could do some weird shit with that.
Could do some very weird stuff with that, but I don't think it'll be that.
No,
But I'm
it
not
won't.
sure if it's live action or not.
I would say it's probably
I thought
going
it
to
was
be
going to
a
be
classic
animated.
animation like the Droids anime series has been.
Sorry. It's like the Ewoks animated series as well.
Yeah, but maybe a little bit higher production
Yeah,
quality.
it was a little bit higher quality than that. And then we had Kathleen Kennedy mention about the Taika Waititi movie, which we got to see a logo of. Very weird. And the other one was the last one they announced was Rogue Squadron movie.
Yes.
Now, the announcement for it from Patty Jenkins. Now, Patty Jenkins, as we all know, wrote. Did she write?
Director
I'm not sure if
of
she
Wonder
wrote it, but
Woman
definitely
franchise.
the director of both Wonder Woman movies. First one being amazing. Second one being okay. Just the first one, the trench scene in the first Wonder Woman movie is just incredible. It's just an amazing way of introducing that character like that.
I haven't seen any of those, so again, I can't judge anything.
I would suggest if you can find the clip of what's Wonder Woman in World War I trenches. You can find it on YouTube, and if you can, I would suggest watching it because it really is a very well done scene, and it's a really great way of introducing the character in that way as well. We know that
But the second movie isn't the 1984 one, is it?
Yes, it is.
Well, I only heard and read stories about it, and people are crying.
There's there's a lot of different what's the word I'm looking for? There is a lot of different opinions on Wonder Woman 84. Let's put it this way. And it's your typical fandom, let's put it this way.
Yeah, the thing is, I know Wonder Woman only from comics from the early 80s.
Yeah.
And there is no way in hell that this movie holds up to that. It's impossible. Oh, I lied. I know another Wonder Woman, and that was the original series.
Linda Carter, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember Linda Carter, yes. But anyway, so Patty Jenkins has directed those, and she posted up on Twitter her announcement. And initially it was her talking, and she was rollerblading to her car. And she talked about, that she's always wanted to make a fighter pilot movie.
Yeah, her dad is a
Top Gun.
fighting
Dad's a
pilot, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I
to
didn't
be
twig at
brutally honest,
all.
when I saw that trailer, I was bored to shit.
Well, I didn't twig until you hear the music as she goes to put the helmet on. I
Yeah.
was going, so what's she doing? Is she doing something like Top Gun or whatever? And then her walking to the X-Wing. So yeah, it was just an announcement to say she's the director of it. That's all it was. There was nothing else to it. We don't know when it's set. We don't know whether it's going to be original trilogy or
Oh, we do
Mandalorian
know
series.
that.
Do we?
Yeah,
It's Rogue Squadron,
so it's Rogue Squadron, and it's an original X-wing. It's not the new model from the sequels.
So, but that means it could be post Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but not. I'm guessing it'll be somewhere around during the original trilogy, reaching into the timeline of the Mandalorian, but nothing that goes anywhere beyond.
Yeah. So
And let's
I
face
guess
it,
we'll see.
with that title, Rogue Squadron, and with the amount of fandom that's behind that, and the books that have been written on Rogue Squadron, I'm guessing they are going to make a movie that's the origin stories, if you will. So, how did Rogue Squadron become one of the elite?
Yeah, I can see it being that. I'm just wondering which characters they pick, because do they pick Dennis Lawson? Well, do they pick Wedge, which means they'll have to recast because Dennis isn't a young man anymore.
I'm pretty sure they will go with the pilots from A New Hope, recast from different members.
Yeah. Well, it was never called Rogue Squadron until the Return of the Jedi, anyway.
Yeah, but
it was called Red. There were Red 1, Red 2, wasn't it? It was all Red Squadron, yeah. Wasn't it? Which we all denoted later on was probably Rogue Squadron, but originally it was all of that.
Maybe you just fixed this timeline for us. Maybe they got called Rogue Squadron after that, and so that would make it set it into the timeline of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, Empire Strikes Back stroke Return of the Jedi stroke post Jedi.
You never know. Needed to be recast for the pilots.
Yeah, they would have to recast pilots.
You never know. They wouldn't be too bad, because most of the pilots don't have that much on-screen time.
It may be a brand new collection of pilots, because of the fact is that we know Disney class the Rogue Squadron novels as legends, not canon. But we know Wedge was there, and Wedge was always like Red 1 or Red 6 or whatever his call sign was. So they could leave that as that, and just have this new squadron be created post Empire or post Jedi to hunt the Empire, and this is the foundations of that squadron. We have no news other than Christmas 2023. So they're going back to Christmas, which is good.
With that release date, I'm guessing they are already way in production.
Oh yeah, there'll be some post production probably doing. They've got the volume, so they'll probably use the volume for a lot of the people in cockpit shots. I think they'll use the volume for that, and casting and script writing and stuff. So say probably go into some sort of pre-production this year, ready to see filming back end of this year to do the visual effects during 2022. Or writing for this year.
With that date, they're probably hoping to have regular production back up in the later half of 2021.
Yeah, so, back end of this year, beginning of.
So if COVID gets worse, I'm guessing the movie is getting pushed back again.
Or they do what a lot of the films seem to have done, which is completely closed sets, where basically all of the production team. This is what happened with the recent Marvel movies, especially ones in Australia, because we're filming Shang-Chi, which is coming out this year. And what they did was basically all of the actors were basically, and all of the crew and everybody, that's their bubble. They basically live, sleep, work together just about. Nobody
Yeah.
else,
Would make a very productive environment.
Yeah. Unless your boss is Tom Cruise and you violate that thing and then he goes ballistic, which was in the news. I went absolutely nuts. He's caught on a recording of the meeting he had with production, with everybody on the production, basically going absolutely nuts over them violating the COVID rules.
Well, I
Because
can understand why.
I can understand exactly why he did it. It would shut down production. And part of the reason is probably money, because he is the executive producer of it. But the other thing is, I think, from me, he's trying to look after them. Wear your mask. Social distance.
And also, it is potentially lethal for some people.
Exactly. So,
It's
but
it's
yeah,
like washing your hands after going to the toilet. It's nothing you do for yourself. It's something you do for everybody else.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
called decency.
yeah, exactly.
Learn it.
So I think that's it.
Yeah, at least when it comes to the investors call. So they let me rephrase that. Disney promises a lot.
Yeah.
And they burned a lot of fandom and fan favorites with the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the relaunch of Clone Wars, getting it the last season it deserved, and making such good work with the Mandalorian, I think they are more or less on a good to neutral standing on the fan base, I'd
Yeah.
say. And if they keep up the production value, the amount of work they put in, and the reacting to feedback from the fans as they have done now with the Mandalorian, I think they could really go and make this a great franchise again.
Yeah, I think they can. I'm not one of the fans that shit on the prequels and sorry, shit on the sequels and stuff. Because there was a lot of people who did, but there's a lot of people who enjoyed them, and I enjoyed them for what they were.
Yeah,
As I keep saying, they weren't written for me. They weren't written for me. They were written to bring new fans into the franchise.
and
Yes, using old characters, but still, that was the idea behind them. So, but
it's
I think,
always the thing with hype that is generated.
yeah,
If you remember how much shiver went down your spine when you first saw Harrison Ford going onto the floor of the Millennium Falcon, going,
yeah,
"Chewie, we're back home." I'm still getting chills down my
I cried.
just think about that. It's it's such a classic, great scene, and if they would have been able to keep
Build
this
on that,
level
yeah.
of awesomeness throughout the three movies, nobody would have complained. But
Yeah.
that set a level of expectation that was unable to held up for more than 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's a bit like the scene as well where you first see Darth Maul in that original Phantom Menace trailer. When
Yeah,
the doors open in the trailer and he's standing there and you go, "What's he do?" And then
and
the
then
lightsaber, and then the
and you
other
see
end
for
of the
the
lightsaber,
first
and he's like,
time you see this double wielding
"Yeah,
lightsaber with the very iconic music, which again, the music in Star Wars is the A and O of it's
yeah,
the be all end all.
yeah." I mean, a quick one. I mean, I think we covered it in before Christmas, was with episode 8 of The Mandalorian for season 2, as well as the way that Ludwig combined Luke's theme into the Mandalorian stuff, and the same way he was able to combine the Ahsoka theme within that as well. It was just, we we know what music can do, from a point of view of building and setting the scene, and they were just two examples of how the new iterations of the music with Ludwig doing it and stuff, and bringing his aesthetic to it just added to the whole feel of it, from point of view of storytelling.
Yeah, and
But
if anybody has any doubt that music is really working within these movies, uh, Go ahead, search for the Star Wars music by John Williams, and look for the chase in the asteroid field. You will hear that sound, and you will immediately see on your mind's eye the scene where the Millennium Falcon is chased through the asteroid field.
The one I often listen to is, and it's not Duel of the Fates, it's the fall. There's a one on the episode 3 soundtrack, which is basically the fall of Anakin. It's like Anakin's theme, but it's the dark version of it, which is the
Where
one I
they have implemented the Imperial March to a degree, I think.
bits of it, yes, but it's the one where it's the one that you I think you hear during the lightsaber duel that he has with Kenobi as well, and that just evokes the memories of that sort of thing as well. So music works, and if one thing, there's a lot of positives we can say around the Mandalorian from a point of view of the way that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have sort of looked after and kept the essence of what is Star Wars, from going from episode 5 of season 2 being very much a Japanese samurai movie, and they say this pretty much that's where Dave's influence came from,
Yeah, and
right the way through to just having physical sets with physical droids and bits on. It's kept that aesthetic, and it's worked.
And if anybody needs to get some feel for Filoni and his fellowship of merry men, just watch the Disney Plus documentary if
Yeah.
you have Disney Plus. 2 seasons. It's an interesting look behind the scenes. The first one is a bit dry at times, but the second season is really they are filmed on set when they get to hear the first time the audio for the Mandalorian, and you can see they are like little kids in their toy box and going, "Oh, this is so cool."
Yeah, it's definitely worth, especially the first 2 episodes for the first season one, because the way they filmed it was the first season you got 8 episodes. For the second season, they just put out an hour-long documentary series. But those first 2, especially where Dave is talking about his interview with George, but also how George described Jedi to him, about the way that the whole idea behind, and we've covered this about them sort of
Yeah,
being samurai, where we'll put the lightsaber on the table in front of you and go, right, we're going to now negotiate, but if need be, I will pick this up and slice your head off, type of sort of attitude.
aggressive negotiations.
Yes. So it's to quote a very wise Jedi. So I guess we'll see. I mean, the other thing I saw today, leading back to the investors call, was the rumblings that they may be trying to get Liam Neeson to make an appearance in Kenobi as Qui-Gon Jinn's Force Ghost.
Oh, that would be awesome. Even if they don't get him as a Force Ghost, but simply a voice, that would also be nice.
He has appeared in the animated series.
Yes, I know. I've seen that, or rather
episodes.
heard it.
Yeah, as Qui-Gon Jinn. So it'll be interesting to because he has expressed interest to possibly come. Because I think after he played him, he didn't want to do anything more with that. That.
I think
But
that's more down to Jar Jar Binks.
yeah, maybe.
He didn't want to be reminded of that.
Maybe so. Well, I think that's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's one thing I just saw today, which isn't related to the Investors Day, but to Star Wars as a whole. Ralph, do you play computer games?
I do.
Have you played Star Wars Battlefront 2?
I haven't played the Battlefront 2 or Squadrons.
So then this will be your chance to do so. From the 14th to the 21st of January, Epic Game Store is giving away Star Wars Battlefront 2 for free.
14th, I'll just make a note of that, because yes.
14th to the 21st.
Is that the free game Epic is doing? Excellent. Because
Yes.
Epic did that, because it did a bunch of free games,
Yeah, they still that. Over the new year they did a lot of dailies, and now they're back to their weekly schedule. And just today I was aware that they're doing Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Now that's an interesting one because that's Aiden Versio's solo campaign is in that. So Aiden, and I know you've had issues trying to get a hold of the Inferno Squadron in Aiden, didn't you? It's the Star Wars Legion minis. But that's the camp. Battlefront 2 is where they introduced that character.
Yeah, and I'm guessing I will at least snag it and maybe get some time with it. But that's a thing that free is always good.
Free is definitely always good, especially with that. I mean, so that's good to know. I'll keep my eyes on for that one.
So is this episode then for the Disney Investor Day. What do you reckon shall we talk about next week?
I'm not sure. Do we want to dive into some Star Wars lore? Possibly, do we want to do something about the Darksaber?
I would suggest something different, simply
Mhm.
because of a very egocentric habit of mine. My wife bought me for Christmas the Ewok double DVD.
What, the actual Battle for Endor and Caravan of Courage?
Yes. And
Oh
we
my
watched it.
words.
And we watched it, both.
Oh, I think we can talk about those.
So maybe next time we talk about sideshows that have been prior to the...
Relegated to history, shall we say?
Yeah, so top of the head, there's Droids, the Christmas special, the Ewoks animated series, and the 2 movies.
And then the Clone Wars one as well.
I think that should be a set where we can talk about things that exist.
Yes.
And are worthy of discussion to a point, and
exactly.
Where we can have a laugh or two, maybe.
Yes.
So with that, I thank everybody on screen, hearing, listening, watching. We will see you again next week. Ralph, have a good one.
You too.
I will hear you next week. Bye.